have to share with us today. So come on down.
All right. Well, hello again. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I feel really honored and appreciated to be invited back. And I hope I can provide the right mix of entertainment and inspiration in what are very troubling times for many of us. So yesterday I went up to my favorite mountains for a hike, and I ended up totally rewriting the sermon. So I forget whatever the title I said it was, but it is not that. The new title is based on a television ad in the 90s. It's called Faith, It's What's for Dinner. If any of you remember that? Apparently I still remember that. So my goal today is to explain an idea that I've been tending for a long time, which I call spiritual pragmatism, or pragmatic spirituality. And the whole idea is encapsulated in a single question, which is, what do I need to believe to take the actions that would make me proud? And so another way of looking at that's the positive way. The negative way of looking at that question is, why don't we all just give up and embrace nihilism? So it's a real interrogation of like, well, why, right? And so my goal today is not only to answer those questions for myself, but to answer them in a way that maybe could help you answer them for yourselves as well. But first, a joke about spiritual pragmatism. So if you've heard this joke, please don't give away the end. And you might entertain yourself by spotting some of the important or unimportant details that I've changed. So, once upon a time, there was a ship crossing from India to Australia, and it met with some unforeseen and rather unfortunate mechanical issues. And everyone aboard, crew and passengers, were forced to evacuate on those little orange rafts, right? And one such raft held a learned Brahmin, who was a first-class passenger on the ship, as well as 2 cooks and a sailor. And this Brahmin had spent his entire life studying, and he was very proud of all the knowledge he accumulated. And so to pass the time on the open ocean and edify his companions, he shared all his wisdom ceaselessly for the days and nights they floated. But since he was a humble fellow, and he didn't want to presuppose any superiority over his companions, he always sought to establish it explicitly by asking what they knew, so he could assure himself that he knew much more than they did. And so the first day, he spoke of Vedic astrology. And so he said, oh, wait, I need to train you to participate in this joke. Okay, so there'll be moments of the joke where I want you to say, no. Can we try that? No. Perfect, that's all you need to do. Okay, so the first day he spoke of Vedic astrology. And he said, well, excuse me, but have any of you made a deep study of Vedic astrology, of how your fates are influenced by the positions of the heavenly bodies at the very hour and minute during which you were born? No. And then he said, oh, my friends, you know, you have not really lived. It is as if half your life is wasted. But never mind, I will enlighten you. And so then he kept talking, right? And so the second day, he wanted to get into Ayurvedic medicine. So it's like, so excuse me, but have any of you made a deep study of Ayurvedic medicine, the true science of life, and how every imbalance in your body can be treated with the right combination of plant medicines without any side effects? No. My friends, truly, you have not really lived. it is as if half of your life has been wasted. But never mind, I will enlighten you. And then he did. And so the third day, because it's a joke, there has to be 3, and there won't be any more than 3. He was preparing to hold forth on Vedic mathematics. And so he started with, excuse me, but have any of you made a deep study of Vedic mathematics, the secret to performing exquisitely complex mental calculations in the blink of an eye? No. But just after the crew gave their now ritual answer, which you just gave, 2 extraordinary events occurred at the same time. One, the fog over the ocean lifted, and they saw a small island merely 100 yards away. And 2, the raft snagged on a sharp rock just below the surface and popped. So the cooks immediately dove overboard, splash, splash, and started swimming towards the island, leaving a little doubt as to whether they were more excited about the land or just getting away from the Brahmin. But the sailor had an eye for irony, and so he tarried a bit. And he said, well, excuse me, learned Brahmin, but have you even made a modest study of swimming? Then my friend, you might not live. It is as if your whole life has been wasted. Splash. So, some knowledge is more pragmatic than others, of course. And there's different kinds of pragmatic knowledge in this for the spirit. And so, but what I'm talking about today, and I'm talking about it because this theory that I'm going to share with you is being tested for me every day these days, is what must I believe to take these actions that are going to make me proud? And I'm just going to get into the definition here of the spiritual pragmatism. It's pragmatic because it makes a concrete, immediate, and positive difference in my life, and I hope to show in the lives of others as well. So that's the pragmatic part. It's spiritual because we're talking about beliefs, and a belief is a thought whose existence and frequency I can control, and whose truth I'll have a very hard time of proving or disproving. So it involves something pragmatic, it involves a belief, and I'm using the term belief interchangeably today with the idea of faith. So another way of stating today's question, the question of spiritual pragmatism, is in what must I have faith in order to take the actions that make me proud? And so basically, we're looking for a theory of motivation, right? And so here's an example of the need for a theory of motivation from the wonderful world of parenting. So I have a 7-year-old daughter. Her name is Jasmine. She was here earlier. She's not here right now. I love Jasmine. She might be my favorite person on the planet. I didn't know that before having her. But I'm going to be honest, and maybe you can verify this with your own personal experience. Parenting is a real pain in the ass. No. I mean, really. Like, the amount of repetitions I have put into extremely simple pieces of information or behavior, like our address, or when to close the front door, or where to put a jacket, or what a month is. I mean, it's really like shocking. It's sometimes with zero indication of progress over many years, right? So, normally, I mean, if in any other domain, you'd be like, okay, this person is insane, and continuing this behavior is absurd. But I continue, right? So in order to continue on, of behaviors which on the face are really insane and absurd, I have to believe certain things, right, that allow me to continue on. And in this case, I believe that knowing these simple facts and behaviors will have a positive effect on my child's safety and happiness in the future. I have to believe that there is some number of repetitions that is non-infinite that is going to lead to learning, right? And that I have to believe it's somehow important for me and my relationship with her that I'm involved in this process. Otherwise, I would just like outsource it to school, right? So if I didn't believe those things, if I didn't believe that knowing our address was important for her safety, then I wouldn't try and teach that because there's no other utility to it. And if I didn't believe that learning was possible, then I wouldn't even engage with this at all. And if I thought I could have as good a relationship without trying to teach her things, I would save myself the trouble and I would not try, right? But apparently, I mean, I believe all those things, and so I continue parenting. So that's like a little parenting example, and now we're going to move it into the big, scary political realm. Because there's something that's even worse than parenting, which is politics. It's even scarier and more daunting. So it's February 2025. We, together as a country, elected a narcissist who promised to shake things up and punish people he doesn't like. And he's really coming through on the promises in a major way. And he's got a crew of very well-organized and well-funded people, his homies, who are really bent on dismantling and defunding the federal government that we're all so used to complaining about. And now it's like, oh, this is happening. And if you can't relate to feeling uncertain about this administration or regime, like think of some other one you didn't like because it doesn't really matter. You know, you could be in some other country right now and having the same feelings. It's not specific to these policies. But what it is specific to is the onslaught. So I'm going to use this word onslaught, the incredible massive things that are happening all the time in the news. And the onslaught is really intense, right? And you might experience it as discouraging or depressing. You may have heard or used or felt the word despair. And you might have all these questions or doubts. You might wonder what's going to happen after the civil rights of someone you love have been repealed or denied, or what's going to happen to Olympic National Park if it's privatized. Or you might wonder how the international order is going to adapt to all these changes that are being proposed. Or you might be imagining a genocide somewhere you care about, or, like, I have all these more specific things that I don't even want to say. But I just want you to imagine that, and then imagine, like, what is the effect on you of tuning into all those possibilities? Possible worlds, maybe probable worlds. And so to follow the question is the question of what is the effect of tuning in, not what's going to happen externally to you, right? And when I follow the question, I see there's actually two battlefields. There's the practical political reality, which from where I'm sitting sucks, right? And there are many, many other outcomes that I think were possible that I would prefer to this one, but this is the one I'm living in. And there's nothing that when I intake all this information and the onslaught, that changes nothing about that practical political reality, right? It just changes things in me. So that's one battlefield. And the second is the battle for our energy, our will to participate, our ability to act, gumption, or our soul. There's different kinds of ways of thinking about it. So think about energy or gumption. And this onslaught, my claim, is that it's as much about the latter, as much about the energy, as it is about getting things actually done in politics. So here's a prediction. You can come back to me in probably a year and know if this prediction is true or not. But much of what's happening in this country right now through executive orders will be blocked or repealed by the court system. That's a prediction, number one. But prediction number two is that your nervous system will not feel as good about that as it feels bad about it right now. So the net effect is going to be negative if you're someone who's concerned about this, right? And to the experience, or to the extent you're experiencing despair right now, I contend that you're losing. Not only are you not acting constructively, but you're not enjoying your life as much, and you're not as alive. That is the nature of despair, a little bit less alive. And I also contend that when you lose, I lose. And then when you lose, we all lose. And that's only true if you are who I think you are, and you're capable of what I think you're capable of. But if that's true, any one of you being in despair and not acting affects all of us, right? So there's two battlefields. There's actually practically what's going on, and there's how you feel about it, which is affecting your actions, right? And this dual battlefield thing is not new. It was actually the prime metaphor in this ancient text called the Bhagavad Gita. It's really influenced me. And if you don't know that story, the one-line summary, it's the story of a god convincing a prince to go out and kill 99 of his cousins, which is not a great advertisement for the book. But it doesn't sound that great. But it's a metaphor, you know. And the main message that I got out of that metaphor, and there's many beautiful messages, but the one I got is that, and this is what Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna to do, which is to act without being attached to the fruits of his actions, the results of his actions. They use the word fruits. And so for Krishna, the key to happiness is doing your duty, and the key to doing your duty is acting without concern, without attachment to the fruits. And that was new for me because I always thought the key to happiness was low expectations. And I actually do think the low expectations thing is true. It's just not validated by Krishna, but I still think it's true. So I just want to recap a little bit. Our initial question, in what must I have faith to take actions that make me proud? And I've hopefully now illustrated that now is a really good time to answer that question, because now is a really good time to take the actions that would make you proud. And I'm hinting that taking your actions now is not just important to you, but it's important to all of us, the greater whole. And then we have this little bit of insight from the Gita that taking actions without attachment is somehow related to this, right? It's an important part of the mix. And so now I'm going to give you 3 illustrations of positive ways of how this can work. So the first is Ted Lasso. Maybe some of you know Ted Lasso. The second is my father-in-law. His name is Papi. Maybe some of you know Papi. And the third is the gambler. So Ted Lasso, he's a TV character. In the TV show, he coaches a sport that he has no idea how to play. He's very sincere, he's very positive, and he really cares. And he really understands this thing about actions and fruits. He's always encouraging the players to do their best at every moment and then totally forget the moment when it's over. So he has this line, be a goldfish, because of the goldfish's famously poor memory. And if you were following his philosophy, you would kick the ball or shoot the basket or whatever the sports people do, and then you would immediately go on to the next productive action where you could support your team, in our case, humanity, without looking to see if that action had succeeded or failed. It's like you take the action, you do your best, you move on, right? And that is what Krishna is talking about. And so the question is, what do you need to believe if you're one of Ted Lasso's players that allows you to do that and not do the kick or the jump and then look to see if you scored before you move on, right? That's the distinction. So the second example is my father-in-law, who we call Papi, which means grandfather in French. And Papi is a human rights activist. That's been his whole life and career. He grew up under a dictatorship in Tunisia, North Africa. He emigrated to France as a young man, and he spent his entire adult life fighting for democracy and human rights. Day after day, protest after protest, rally after rally. It has never ended for him. You know, and he's 60-something? 74, there. So finally, after 30 years in exile, or maybe more, the Tunisian dictatorship gave way to democracy in 2011, and he was able to return to Tunisia as a hero. And then, 10 years later, a candidate running for president in Tunisia under the democratic system advertised how he would dismantle the democracy if elected and become the sole authoritarian ruler. He was voted in. He did exactly that, what he said he would, and now it's basically a dictatorship again. And so what does my father-in-law do? Did he complain? No. Did he succumb to despair like I would have? No. He just keeps on organizing meetings, protests, rallies, and it's because he never stopped. His actions never changed. When he won that, he just went on to other losing causes. He fights bigots in France who persecute Muslims and Arabs, and then he goes to Tunisia and he fights bigots who persecute Jews and black Africans. He's just looking for any losing battle and contributing without any care if he's going to win or not. He just is doing exactly what needs to be. I mean, it's really every day he goes to these rallies in Paris where 10 people show up in some bridge in the corner of Paris in the rain, and he comes back and he's just stoked because he's doing exactly what he thinks is the right thing to do, right? So that's what Krishna is talking about, right? And the question is, what belief allows him to do that? And because he's not really in touch with his emotions in a way I can relate to, I don't know. You know, I've tried to ask him that question, and I can never get a good answer. So it's mysterious. So here's the third example, and then we'll bring this in for a landing. So I don't know if you know the song "The Gambler" by Don Schlitz, made famous by Kenny Rogers. Yeah, it was the first song I learned how to play on guitar. You probably all know the chorus, but my favorite line is, "You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be there's time enough for counting when the dealing's done." And so when is the dealing done according to Ted Lasso and Puppy? Never. Those guys are just always at the table. Okay, enough stories. I'm going to cut to the chase. What do I need to believe to keep going? What do I need to believe to keep acting without concern for the fruits of my actions? There's three things that I came up with. I need to know and have confidence that my path makes a contribution towards the world I want to create, right? That my actions are going to be effective. I need to get some joy out of my actions. And I need to believe it's all going to work out in the end. So let's look at those. The first two, in my book, are empirically verifiable. They're not beliefs. I can test them, right? I serve as a writer, a facilitator, a conflict mediator, a minister. Every time I do these activities, I get feedback that my work is making a contribution towards the world I want to create. Check. Great. I got that. Every time I do a marriage or a baby shower or take a bunch of people on a hike in the woods or mediate a divorce or speak at a funeral, as weird as it sounds, I feel great. It's like, I know it's what I'm here to do. I get joy. So check. The first two are great. But the third, what did I say? The third one was? I need to believe it's all going to work out in the end. That's a belief. Because I have no idea, really, what's going to happen in the end. You know, Martin Luther King put it really beautifully, as he often does. You may know this quote: "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Right? How did he know that? So I think, from what I've read of his words, he knew that because he believed in a living, personal Christian God who spoke to him all the time. And he would talk to that God, and the God would tell him that. So I'm very happy for Martin Luther King. I'm really happy he believed what he did because it allowed him to do what he did for all of us, and I'm very grateful. But I don't have that belief, and I don't know that there's any way I could have that belief. You know, I didn't grow up that way, and I've flirted with all these different religions, and I can't. It's just, I don't think it's available for me, right? So I'm trying to establish the same thing empirically, that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But I can't. I can't establish it empirically. I mean, in some ways it's true. As I talked about last time, our circle of concern has grown enormously over the past 10,000 years. We've never been so advanced in terms of empathy. Like, I was doing this school mediation the other day, an IEP mediation, with 10 highly educated professionals, all deeply concerned about how one special ed student was going to get his best possible public education and peer relationships without feeling like an outcast. It was just a 4-hour meeting. It probably cost the district $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to have all these people in there. And it was worth it to all of those professionals and to the district. It was a level of inclusion and concern that was just so advanced. I'd never experienced anything like that before. So we're making incredible progress in some ways. And in other ways, we've never been so close to destruction, right? Like climate, I mean, whatever you want. Climate catastrophes, rogue AI, disinformation, people intentionally creating deadly pandemics, nuclear holocaust. It's like, that's probably just like half the list. So I don't believe in the personal God. I can't have any like rational, empirical justification, but I need to believe that everything is going to be okay, because what will happen if I don't? It's totally self-defeating, right? If I didn't believe that it wasn't going to work out in the end, then I wouldn't act. And I would have missed my shot at meaning. I would have thrown away that purpose and potential that we all have. So the real, practical, pragmatic reason that I have faith that the moral arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice is that it's pragmatism. I believe what I believe because it allows me to do what I want to do. For me, and for you, and for Jasmine, and for all of us. So thank you, and I hope that made a little bit of sense.